Do you do any post work?
Any what?
Do you adjust levels in Photoshop?
Not really. I mean, sometimes watercolor is pretty hard to scan sometimes, so sometimes you'll have like a nice dark looking watercolor and then you'll scan it and it'll look really light. So then yeah, I use Photoshop for that. And you know, but there's nothing wrong with using Photoshop at all later. If you want to change the colors, like I would do that. I just haven't yet, but I probably will end up doing that. And probably that would be a smarter way of being more efficient. Like, this book took a long time to do, because watercolors take a long time, but like, you figure out your own tricks and stuff, and yeah, that's something to think about, is finding more tricks. Let's see. Alright, I'm gonna, so, just make a brown shirt. To treat it? No. No, it's usually pretty good when it's done without being treated. Yeah, I don't do anything. So, alright, I'm gonna start layering with the hair. Sometimes you can do things like that will seem crazy, like put down like some bright red on someone's hair, and like that might seem like, you know, weird to make like clown hair, but if you're going to layer, then you're going to put other things on top. Watercolors are just really, they're made for layering, and so sometimes you got to think about what you're going to do, and that just takes like practice and knowing what looks right to you and like a layer. So putting this red down here, and then later I'm going to go on top of that with the brown, and then that red will kind of come through. And this is one of the reasons for putting the yellow down underneath. Well, this is what Mark Bell said. I don't know if this really works, but like that the yellow will come up through all the other colors, especially like when you shine light on it, that yellow bounces up, and where you scan it, that yellow bounces up through everything else. When you look at like paintings from like the Northern Renaissance, they used oils, but they used glazing. So they used very thin layers of oil paint that are really that have a lot of this medium in it to make it like kind of translucent, and they just would glaze and glaze and glaze, and like it gives it like a really jewel-like kind of texture, which is really beautiful.
I notice you don't seem to test your colors at all before you go straight from the pan to
I do when I'm working. This is like pretty simple, but and like I'm also like, you know, I'm doing this for a demo, and like I want to just keep moving. So like, but yeah, I do that. Like if you go look at the show at Mix, like all of my pages have like little blotches of color all on the side, because you want to test what it looks like, and yeah. So I do. I'm just not doing. Well, I have like a couple here, but yeah, I usually do a lot more of that than I'm doing now. Alright, this window, I like playing with like glass and reflection and stuff. And by the way, like I'm still learning this, like how to do this. Like when I did this book, like it was the first time I tried using watercolors seriously. Like I went to school for oil painting, so I had experience mixing stuff, so it's not like, whoa, I'm just natural. Like I had been doing that for a long time, but like watercolors are completely different. So you're always learning, and like if you look at the first couple pages of that book, like the watercolors are much simpler, and then as I go on, like you get better, and that's like how this stuff goes. Like if you do anything for a long time, you're gonna get better at it, and you're gonna find your way. And I'm still figuring this out, so like I'm not an expert at this, and like you know, but anyway. What? Yeah, who's that guy who does the color theory stuff? Well, you can just, yeah, you can look that up. I can't remember the guy who's really famous for that, but yeah, you should, color theory is something totally like, I could go on for hours, and I'm not going to get into here, but like, I don't know what to say about that. Like, but it's important. So anyway, like I'm gonna make this reflection in the window of like the window across the aisle. So I just kind of put another layer of blue on there and left that out. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you can see that from here, but like I've penciled stuff through this window and then I didn't outline it. So that's my like kind of language for things that are through glass or things that are reflections or things that are really far away is I won't outline them and I'll just leave that pencil line there. And I like having that little line, but then it gives it more of a sense of distance and stuff and you can still see what you're doing. Yeah. I was experimenting. I've done a couple of pieces that are online that I didn't use any ink for, and that I just painted and I painted the outlines. And I really like doing that. It's a lot of fun, but it takes a long time. So it's not really what I'm doing right now. But that's also something that you can do. You don't have to use ink and watercolors. You can use anything else.
What do you use for inking?
For inking? Well, for the first book, I had this kind of really crazy process where I would, because I was using a tech pen, like a rapidograph, and the kind of ink that comes in a rapidograph pen bleeds when you put water on it. So I would do the pencils, light box them onto a piece of watercolor paper in really, oh, by the way, where's my pencil? This is the kind of pencil I like using, which is a 6H, which is like the hardest lead you can get. It leaves a really light line, and it doesn't smudge a lot. So when you put water over it, it won't like get all over the place. But so I used to pencil really lightly onto the watercolor paper, then watercolor, and then put the ink on top of everything. And that kind of makes it look different. And that's what I used to do before. For this and my process now, I'm just using like China ink, waterproof ink, and like one of these nib pens. Really nice to use. What am I doing right now? Okay. So I'm going to layer that hair. Put some brown over it. And I'm going to start, I like patterns, they're really fun with watercolors, so I'm going to make a plaid shirts are like one of my favorite things to make with watercolors because they're kind of easy. You just kind of do like a stripe here, stripe there, and then like wait for it to dry, and then like the way that the paint layers on itself is kind of the way like plaid it's layered, so it can be really fun to do.
Do you ever go back in with like opaque whites or anything like that?
Not really. Sometimes, like with gouache, but it looks a little bit different when you do that, and like then the problem is you can't go back over that again.
Right.
So I do sometimes, and a lot of people do that. Not really that often.
So I think you mentioned masking earlier, but so if you don't use that, you must have to sort of anticipate where maybe, you know, hot whites are and things like that?
Yeah. Like I use hot whites pretty sparingly, like just bright white. For example, like if you have like a light source that you can see, I always leave that white, and you know, because that'll be like much brighter than everything else. But really, like I had a painting teacher once who pointed out that very few things that you're looking at in the visual world are pure white or pure dark black. Like you can be wearing all black clothes, but you can still find something blacker than black. And you know, if you look around this room, nothing here is really white except for where the light is coming from. So I don't use a lot of this like pure white. But yeah, so I don't use a ton of reserving, but you just gotta think ahead about what it's gonna look like. Now I'm gonna start. At this point, like all of my basic colors are down, except for the suitcase. So I'm just gonna start like layering more stuff on top and making things darker.
Starting to write that. Gauging how fast it's going to be to write this side.
you ever redo panels or just scrap complete pages, anything like that?
Yeah, I don't really scrap a whole panel that often, but I have done that. And that's, you know, yeah.
Do you like to paste a new panel onto the original art, or do you do a lot of that stuff in Photoshop?
No, I usually just like, I'll leave it on a separate piece of paper, and then, because it, you know, you can just, put them all together later anyway. Or have your publisher do it for you.
Yeah.